Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. You already know. Check out the link. Stay for the end of the video for the special deal. And for now, let's talk about some gauntlets. Gauntlets are a short-range, explosive weapon. They can turn the tide of the battle incredibly quickly through high damage strings and early offstage kills, but they tend to struggle in the late game. They have some of the most oppressive edgeguarding tools out of any weapon, so if you're a player that loves to go deep offstage, you might want to consider gauntlets as your next weapon to pick up. As of April 2019, there are 8 gauntlet-wielding legends. Core, a rock monster with low speed but high power. You might enjoy him if you're a fan of slow, hard-hitting archetypes. Wu Shang, a monk with a balance of stats and quick signatures. He's your typical all-rounder. Val, a cyborg with tanky defense and hefty signatures, but also low attack and high speed. If you're okay with prioritizing survivability over raw damage, Val might be the pick. Cross, a New York City mobster with deceptively powerful sigs. Gauntlets and guns isn't the easiest combo to wield, but if used right, they can force an opponent to play against 2 completely different styles, so that's a definite advantage for a Cross master. Mordex, a quick werewolf with lower attack speed but devastating signatures. If you like controlling the pace of the game, Mordex might be the best option there is. Caspian, a speedy thief with low defense but fast movement and signatures. His 2 weapons are both effective as close range rushdowns, so if you're all about going in, consider playing some Caspian. Zariel, a celestial being with high damage and defense. They're probably the most underrated legend in the game at high level play, so if you want to pick up a super strong but also underrepresented character, Zariel's the way to go. And finally, Rayman. Sidelight traverses the ground with a nice, quick uppercut. It's Gauntlet's primary setup tool and a great attacking approach option. It launches the user into the air, which can make it difficult for weapons with slower anti-air options to punish. With that said though, the recovery time is so low and the attack itself so quick that punishing is difficult even with a great option like Spear Downlight or Bow Neutral Light. Sidelight has no true combo follow-up, but there are a couple effective string routes you can use. Sidelight Nair is unjumpable and leads to even more potential follow-ups. Sidelight Recovery is also unjumpable, and can lead to more potential damage in a juggle at lower percents, and a kill at high HP. Keep in mind that these are dodgeable and not guaranteed true combos, however, if your opponent blows their dodge or chooses not to dodge as a mix-up, they are inescapable. Sidelight also sets up a tech chase for a possible kill. Most dodges can be covered by a sidelight into GC sidelight either to the left or the right side, and those that can't are covered by a delayed recovery. Downlight is an advancing ground slam and also your main combo starter. For pure damage, Downlight Dare is your optimal true combo, but you can also Downlight Sidelight to either set up for a tech chase, kill, or a dodge punish. At low percents you can go for something like Downlight Sidelight Recovery Nair, or just Downlight Sidelight Nair into literally whatever you want. At high percents, a Downlight Sidelight Recovery might end up just taking the stock, so you don't gotta worry about a follow-up after that one. If you land your Downlight with a gravity cancel, you can extend it even further. GC Downlight Nair Dare is a true combo, as well as GC Downlight Nair Recovery. If for some reason the Nair won't bounce up your opponent far enough to land the recovery, you can just go for a GC Downlight into the recovery, and that's also a kill option. Keep in mind that Downlight moves you forward before the hitbox comes out, so be careful, try not to run into attacks as you're using it. Neutral Light is a quick get-off-me tool and can also be used as an extender for some combo routes. Dare into Neutral Light is a nice quick 1-2, and you can also do Dare into GC Neutral Light if, your opponent's not expecting it. Very often, you'll be able to use Neutral Light after you whiff in order to interrupt an opponent trying to punish you, and there's also some stuff you can do, stringing it into Sidelight, stringing it into Downlight, Tech Chase at low percent. Neutral Light has got a lot going for it, but be careful because it does have a bunch of active frames, and not that much range to make up for it. Nair is an all-purpose tool. On stage, it leads to high damage combos and strings, and off stage, it can interrupt recoveries and gimp super early. Along with that, it comes out very fast and is very difficult to punish. Nair into side air, nair into down air, and nair into recovery are your 3 most common follow-ups, but you should feel comfortable with nair into neutral light, nair into GC side light, nair into GC down light, and to a lesser extent nair into ground pound. Those are all either combos or strings that you should be able to land consistently, given the scenario, of course. It's hard to tell you which option to always go for, because the follow-ups will change based on momentum, damage, positioning, whether or not your opponent has a dodge, and overall just your ability to extend your combos. So for example, a momentum nair will just fly across the map, allow for a big range of follow-ups, but a standing nair will be limited. Speaking of momentum nair, it's a sort of key thing with this move. If you have momentum, you can drag opponents deep, you can drag them off stage from pretty much the center as long as you get that chase dodge or you get that dash jump. But if you want damage instead of the offstage positioning, just reverse the nair, it'll kill the horizontal momentum and it'll toss them backwards for you to follow up. Sair is your flying punch attack, and not only is it great and satisfying when it hits, but of course, it's an amazing recovery tool. The additional timing mix-ups and the raw horizontal distance that Sair gives, paired with the actual recovery of Gauntlets, which is also amazing in its own right, just means that Gauntlets, their recovery game is insane. On stage, it flows and sets up into other moves beautifully, especially at low HP values. Sair into nair, Sair into sidelight, Sair into Sair, why not? You can pretty much follow up with anything, which also makes it an amazing move to force out a dodge from your opponent and get those huge damage punishes. I mentioned Sair into sidelight earlier. A falling Sair into sidelight, or GC sidelight depending on the positioning and where you hit the move, that'll cover 4 different dodges just on its own. It has pretty decent priority and a deceptive amount of active frames, which means you can kind of get away with a lot, especially off stage when you're interrupting jumps. Baiting out options and punishing with a falling Sair neutral will net you a ton of mileage, and if you can convert on even more damage after the hit, it'll make your gauntlets that much more terrifying. Dair is a repeated downward punch, which serves as a fantastic damage builder and a tech chase setup tool. You'll most frequently land a dair as a true combo off of downlight, but that doesn't mean your combo has to stop there. You can follow every dodge after a dair close to the ground and cover multiple at once with just one option. Dair into GC sidelight will catch neutral, up, down, and down in dodges. Dair into chase dodge nair will catch all outward options. And dair into jump ground pound will cover all the inward options. If your opponent doesn't have a dodge or just decides not to use it, a dair into chase dodge nair or a dair into chase dodge recovery will catch him slipping. The nair will net you more damage as you'll get another true follow-up after it, but they'll be able to jump out of it. So if you think your opponent's gonna jump, snag him with the recovery. Speaking of recovery, Gauntlet recovery is your recovery move. There really needs to be a terminology change here. It's like a beefed up version of unarmed recovery, albeit you don't have any horizontal control during the move, but instead you've got insane priority, and it's a fantastic knockout tool. It strings very nicely into nair and dair at lower HPs, and of course, you'll see it off stage. I mean, that's just a given. Recovery can be very dangerous. If you land a recovery into nair when your opponent has no dodge off stage, you've effectively turned around the edge guard and put yourself in a prime position to get the knockout. I went over the other moves that set up into recovery earlier, but on its own you can also shark to catch landings. Because it moves so fast when you input the attack, reacting to it is near impossible, but I would still be careful of getting reversed. You don't want to be like Icarus in the sun, alright? You don't want to go too high up for the kill and then get hammer dared or something like that. Finally, we have ground pound. Gauntlet ground pound is, without a doubt, the most reliable and the easiest ground pound to use in the game. It requires way less positional accuracy than a lot of other ground pounds just because of the unique mechanic that you can steer it mid-flight. So take full advantage of this, alright? You probably already are. I don't think I need to talk about this move too much. Something you may not know is that if you hold the ground pound for a bit, a small auto-release hitbox will appear. It basically means that the move will come out automatically if someone passes through it, but of course you can also manually release the ground pound for the main hitbox to come out, which in my opinion is what you should be doing. Not only is the hitbox that comes out much larger than the auto-release one, but it also gives you more frame advantage if you do end up landing the hit, as the release animation would have already started. You'd also be avoiding any situation where someone barely makes it back to the wall and ends up getting their wall touches back just because the auto-release didn't hit them yet.
To the series final, there's never been, Faison's at such a disadvantage right now. He did so well in the crew battles this past Tuesday. Oh, we almost got the read on that. Faison, huge damage.
Wait a minute.
Oh,
They
can
got
you
the
believe
dodge.
it? The white team has done it. I don't believe it. Oh,
They
can
got
you
the
believe it? The white team has done it. I don't believe it.
If your opponent doesn't have a dodge, you can use the ground pound to follow up off of a nair, a sair, a dare, bunch of options. For example, one route you could go is a GC downlight into chase dodge nair into ground pound. And of course, if the ground pound pops him up high enough, you can go for another nair. If you land a nair off stage and you know your opponent is gonna mash their jump button, you can catch them with an immediate ground pound. I would be careful using this against more experienced players. They're much less likely to fall into that trap, but I will say that if they're caught out without a dodge, if they're caught out low in the stage without that many jumps, and you read that they're gonna jump, I mean, why not go for it? It's satisfying as hell. Overall, the Gauntlet moves flow incredibly well together. With enough practice and the right reads, a stock can clock into the red with just a few neutral interactions. I mean, if you even need that. Every aerial sends downwards, so more likely than not, you're going to be forcing offstage play for a good chunk of the game. I mean, who needs damage when you got the gimps? I'm not going to go too in-depth with every legend. I think that's better served for individual legend guides, but I will scratch the surface a bit and go over each of their Gauntlet SIGs. Again, this is not a here's every option, here's every scenario, here's every follow-up for each legend. It's just a little thing for each one that I think could help you out. Core's N-Sig is super fast and pretty safe. It's great at catching upward or outward dodges after a nair or a sair or something like that. Keep in mind that when you slide charge it, gravity doesn't stop you, so be careful. I don't want to see y'all fall into your death. Side Sig is a fantastic Sig. It's got great range, and you know, a downlight side Sig string might work here and there. Down Sig is fantastic to just land on your opponents with. Baiting out options and then landing with a GC down Sig will net you a lot of kills, and it's something that your opponent is going to have to respect. Downlight into N-Sig is a great string for Wushang. Ledge trapping and baiting out options with Downlight and N-Sig both available is super powerful, though I would be careful because N-Sig is kind of a commitment. Along with that, you can string Sair into neutral Sig, Dare into neutral Sig, etc. Those can all work if you've got the read. Side Sig is kind of an extended poke, but because it doesn't have that much force if they bounce on stage, the risk reward can often not be in your favor. However, if you do land it so that you punch them off stage, take full advantage of that edge guard and secure the knockout. Your down Sig always sends the opponent in the direction that you're facing, so be aware of that when you're using it. Other than that, it can be pretty effective at catching inward dodges, but also be careful. I mean, it's a pretty big commitment. Val's N-Sig can be great to catch upward dodges, especially since it has a lot of active frames, but be aware that if there's no ground to land on, the force will reduce by a lot, and they'll be sent downward. Side Sig is Val's main knockout tool on the Gauntlets, and it has this extra hitbox at the end that can catch opponents if they're not careful, but it's also a big commitment, so don't throw this out unless you got the read. Down Sig is kind of more like a utility Sig than a main killing one. It'll allow you to back up safely if you're spaced properly. At low percents, it can be comboed into a nair or recovery, but it won't kill until really, really high percent. N-Sig is fantastic. It's got deceptively low startup and recovery frames. If you whiff, you can immediately go for a neutral light, which makes it pretty hard to punish. It can be used to string out of downlight, and overall, packs a punch. Side Sig has pretty short range, but this also packs a punch. It can be used to read a spot dodge or inward dodge after downlight, or, string out a downlight if your opponent doesn't dodge. Down sig, it's got its uses. It's most commonly used to guard the lip of the stage, but it hits upward, so you really wouldn't be gaining that much of advantage for landing it. If it won't kill, it might be better to just threaten with downlight or go off stage. You got gauntlets, right? End sig isn't that great. You're probably gonna have to have a big boy read to land it or something like that. Side sig has deceptive range, it's got great force, it leaps over a lot of grounded attacks. It can also be used to string after downlight or neutral light. So, good sig overall. Down sig was nerfed in both the Winter Holiday patch and the Hellboy patch, but it's still a super strong option and definitely the best gauntlet sig. The forward leaping angle is so brutal that you can confirm kills super early given that you're sending them off stage. Positioning and movement is key for this. It's pretty good as a read after a downlight or a neutral light, and it also has deceptively low recovery frames, meaning you'll often be able to bait out an opponent's punish and cover yourself with a neutral light. End-sig is a great bait tool and can be used to cover a lot of options, especially when the opponent is recovering from off stage. It's got deceptively high active frames, but also keep in mind that if you land it, it doesn't give you a chase dodge because it's a projectile, so using it to recover isn't really an option. Side sig, although it's slow and although it has small range, is a reversal tool, so if you land it in a bad situation, you can probably get stage control back, and it's also a potential string follow-up after downlight or neutral light. Down sig is a utility sig like Val's, but it rarely kills and it doesn't really back you up far enough, so it's kind of easy to punish. I will say it is good for punishing dodges because there's a bunch of active frames as the bombs go off, so it's got that going for it. End sig is super fast, it covers the air, it can be used to recover with a GC. I think this sig is pretty good. You can do a nair, and then if they spot dodge, an end sig will catch them out. There's a bunch you can do with this sig, play around with it. I think Zariel has got a lot going for him. Especially with that side sig, I think this might be the best sig in his kit. It's got a nice and high hitbox, you can downlight into side sig as a good string. It hits at that nice and prime horizontal angle. Again, Zariel, very underrated character. His down sig is similar to Core's, but with a slightly smaller hitbox. Actually, when I think about it, Zariel is just like Space Core. His end sig's a vertical grab, his side sig's that extended hitbox throwing thing, and his down sig is just a nice stack thing. You know what, Zariel, he's just Space Rockman. He's the guy from Thor 3! No, I'm an idiot. End sig covers the same area as recovery, so I don't think you'll see that much usage in strings, but with the recent buff you can throw it out, it comes out pretty quick. The regular side sig is pretty decent, but the true power comes from the sparked up version. Spark side sig, it has extremely long range for a gauntlet sig considering it also doesn't displace you, and it deals 28 damage. Downlight side sig, at high percents, it's a read based knockout option. Down sig is a pretty good tool to cover the lip of the stage with a constant hitbox. On a map like Shipwreck, it'll just see a huge boost in utility, similar to something like Ada's Gun End sig, but it's not really worth to use as a dodge punish because there's a bunch of active frames and the damage isn't the greatest. You'd probably be much better off if you just went for a standard gauntlet follow-up. As gauntlets, your primary goal should always be applying pressure. Whether it's through your combo openers, high damage dodge punishes, or incredible offstage game, gauntlets excel at forcing opponents to respect their burst style. You don't always need to approach and put yourself in there to apply pressure. Just occupying space is often enough to make your opponents really uncomfortable. Spacing downlights is one of the most important options for a gauntlet player. It sets up guaranteed damage at any percent and also a kill as you clock into the red. Gauntlets don't have a super safe aerial poke option like Spear Stare or Orb Dare, so downlight and sidelight are both essential for you to space in neutral. Because of its range, you're going to have to play pretty close to the chest, so you'll have to have at least some proficiency in, baiting out your opponent, because you don't really have the luxury of spacing a dash sidelight from all the way across the map like guns. You gotta stay close to your opponent. Gauntlet sidelight is one of the scariest moves to fight against. It's relatively difficult to punish, creates massive punishes on its own, and it can lead to a knockout. Take full advantage of this. Practice your follow-ups after sidelight in training room until you can land them more consistently, then take it into a real match and continue practicing it there. This is true for every weapon in the game, but especially something like gauntlets and especially something like scythe. You have to make your opponent respect your options. If you always go for the dodge read, they'll learn to never dodge and you'll never get your huge punish. So how do you do that? You condition someone to dodge by making them fear the string. So you go for the extended follow-up, and the next time they get hit by the opener, they'll think, oh no, they're gonna go for an extended follow-up. Mash their dodge, and that's when you catch them with a huge damage punish. Every hit has to feel like a mini game for the opponent to escape. And then once you end up catching their dodge, maximize your punish as much as you can. Gauntlets have so much potential in extensions, so you gotta make the most of it. Gauntlets are a momentum-based weapon, and I'm not talking about the mental capacity, but literally in how the moves interact. You need speed to pull off huge damage punishes, otherwise your character will freeze in place and drop the combo. This means utilizing your space on the map is super important. Gauntlets want to kill off stage. Every aerial move, okay, with the exception of recovery, I know someone's gonna comment that, every aerial move sends downward, which means that if you land it on stage, the force is going to be reduced. This leads to situations where your enemy is at super high percent, and the gauntlets can't follow up because the force is too high, but they also can't knock out because the enemy keeps bouncing. That means you have to capitalize in the offstage game. Even if you don't edgeguard 100% of the time, threaten the space. Make your opponent fear your options. That is invaluable. Gauntlets have the tools to knock out extremely early offstage. Your job is to remind your opponent of that. A single well-placed snare can lead to a kill, so don't get impatient, force your opponent to blow their options, and then punish hard. At high percents, you might want to give up some more guaranteed damage for a chance at a knockout. So downlight sidelight instead of going for downlight dare to set up for a tech chase. Or even just go for a read after the downlight. More often than not, your opponent's not going to expect a sig right after downlight, so they might not dodge it. But it's all about reading the scenario, and it's all about mixing up your options. So don't always go for the same thing. Keep your opponent on their toes, you know? Gauntlets can sometimes struggle to get out of juggles because they're small range and low priority on some attacks. So be careful, try not to blow all your options while being juggled or be too predictable while coming back on stage. And remember, always, Sair is your friend. When picking up a Gauntlets legend, you probably want to meet one of these two criteria, which is fantastic Gauntlet signatures or a secondary weapon with great kill setups. As I mentioned before, Gauntlet's main weakness is on-stage kill power, so, you know, great signatures can help mitigate that and make Gauntlets that much more scary. If a legend doesn't have either of those, they aren't necessarily a bad character, but they are going to have a lot harder time securing games. To recap it all, I'd categorize Gauntlets as a burst damage weapon with very fluid motion. Your main damage builders are downlight, follow-ups after sidelight, and dodge punishes off of straight hits. Your kill options are recovery, sidelight tech chases, and pretty much anything offstage. Oh, and of course, your legend signatures. I mean, that's just a given. A good general strategy is always trying to apply pressure, forcing the offstage game, and conditioning defense. Keep in mind, I mean, this is just one person's take on the weapon. Don't let me have too much influence, alright? Because I don't really want that. I don't really deserve that. Form your own opinion based on the information that I presented and what you experienced yourself. These videos, alright, they're meant to help the community, okay? I don't want y'all arguing about semantics or taking apart individual words to blast someone. This is for you, okay? Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you want to request the next weapon guide, leave a comment and I'll give it the quickie 1-2 consider-a-roo. In the meantime, you can check out other guides. With today's sponsor, it's Skillshare. You heard of them. They got 25,000 plus high-level educational classes that you can take to grow in pretty much any field you want. I mean, they got everything. Y'all already know this vid was like 3 months in the making and delayed, and seriously, without some procrastination tips, I'm probably gonna do it again. So shoutouts to Jill for this lesson right here. It's some good stuff. She told me I had a brain. She told me I need to leave Smarties for dopamine. I mean, if Smarties can't get me going, then I don't know what will. skl.sh/eggsoup. First 500 of you that sign up get 2 months of free lessons, alright? That's the premium membership right there. Unlimited access. Join a class. Join a community. They got everything. You want to know how to make videos? Premiere lessons. I probably need to watch some of those. Graphic design? They got it. Animation? They got it. How to beat Scythe? Okay, well, I don't think anyone has the answer to that one, so probably not. But they got lessons to teach you how to meditate. Yeah, seriously. Like that is not a joke. They actually have lessons to teach you how to meditate. So when you get gimped at 0, you're staying chill. You're not chucking your controller through your monitor. and it's less than $10 a month for a year subscription. I mean, that's less than some Brawlhalla skins, okay? And again, if you're one of the first 500, it's free for 2 months. So, I mean, check out skl.sh/eggsoup or go to the description and clicky clacky. You already know. They help me out making this video. It'll help me out if you check out Skillshare, and maybe you can dive into something you've been meaning to but never took the opportunity. You got curiosity, you got creativity, you got a career. Skillshare. Really, learning new stuff, it changes your world, it changes your perspective, and who knows, growing in one area might make you grow a lot in another area, like Brawlhalla. I know it did for me, but that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Check out Skillshare. I hope you enjoyed.